Naomi Benson stood before the mirror, smoothing the soft folds of her simple ivory gown. Her heart raced, not because of fear, but because this day symbolized hope. After years of widowhood, after nights of tears and endless struggles raising her son alone, she was finally stepping into a future that promised stability. 7-year-old Ethan peeked from behind her, clutching the little navy blue suit Richard had bought him. His eyes sparkled with innocence. "Mommy, do you think Mr. Richard will like me?" he whispered. Naomi knelt, cupping his cheeks. "He already loves you, my darling. He said you're the reason. He wanted us to be part of his life." Ethan smiled shyly, though doubt lingered in his young eyes. Moments later, the mansion's great doors opened, and Naomi walked into a new chapter. Richard Cole, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed immaculately in a black suit, greeted her with a proud smile. He was a man of wealth, charm, and power. His hands were steady as he held hers. "You look radiant, Naomi," Richard said, kissing her knuckles. "From today, you and Ethan are my family." Applause filled the lavish hall as family members and guests witnessed the union. Chief Duroji, Richard's father, beamed with approval. But not every face was welcoming. From a corner, Vanessa Cole watched with a practiced smile. Beautiful, glamorous, draped in diamonds, she looked every inch the woman of power. Yet inside, her heart simmered. She leaned to her friend beside her and muttered, "She thinks she's won, but she'll soon learn who runs this family." Naomi, oblivious to Vanessa's resentment, tightened her grip on Ethan's hand as vows were exchanged. She thought she had found peace. But peace was only the beginning of a storm. The Cole mansion was a fortress of marble, chandeliers, and sweeping staircases. Naomi and Ethan arrived with excitement, dragging their suitcases through the glossy floors. "Welcome home," Richard said warmly, wrapping an arm around Naomi. But Vanessa's voice cut through the moment like glass.
"Home,"
she chuckled lightly.
"For some of us, yes.
For others, well, let's see how long they last." Naomi stiffened. Ethan clutched her gown tightly. Richard frowned. "Vanessa, that's enough." Vanessa's smile never wavered. "I'm just saying, this house has rules. Naomi, I hope you and your son can adapt." That evening at dinner, the tension was thicker than the aroma of grilled lamb. Vanessa watched Ethan with hawk-like eyes as he struggled with his fork. "So, Ethan," she said sweetly, "do you know how to behave in a house like this? We don't tolerate clumsiness." Naomi immediately intervened. "He's only 7, Vanessa. He'll learn." Richard cleared his throat. "Let's eat." But Ethan pushed his food around, his appetite gone. Naomi bent close and whispered, "It's all right, baby. Just eat a little." Vanessa's smile thinned. To her, Ethan was not a child. He was a rival. Every glance she gave him carried the weight of hidden malice. Later that night, as Naomi tucked Ethan into bed, he asked softly, "Mommy, why doesn't she like me?" Naomi's heart broke. She stroked his hair and whispered, "Some people don't know how to love right away. But I'll always love you enough for both of us." Yet deep down, Naomi knew Vanessa's dislike was not ordinary. It was dangerous. Days passed, but Vanessa's smile grew sharper, her words colder. Behind the closed doors of her gilded dressing room, she poured her heart out to her closest friend, Lydia. "That boy is in my way," Vanessa hissed, pacing in her silk robe. "If Richard keeps doting on him, I'll never have control. Everything his father owns will be tied to Ethan someday. And where does that leave me?" Lydia gasped. "Vanessa, he's just a child." "Exactly," Vanessa replied coldly. "A child who stands between me and everything I deserve. If that boy disappears, Richard will have no choice but to give me everything." Her eyes burned with a chilling resolve. Unaware, Ethan played outside in the garden, chasing butterflies. Naomi watched him from the balcony, her smile soft, her heart full. Richard joined her, sliding an arm around her waist. "He reminds me of myself at that age," Richard said fondly. Naomi's eyes watered. "Thank you for loving him as your own." Richard kissed her temple. "He's my son now." Nothing will change that. But while love blossomed on one side of the mansion, darkness brewed on the other. Vanessa's whispered plan was no longer just talk. It was the beginning of a dangerous plot. The dining table glittered with silverware and crystal glasses. That evening, Vanessa personally volunteered to cook dinner, a gesture that made Richard beam with approval. Vanessa cooking?
This is new, he teased.
She laughed smoothly. I just want to bond with my family. But in the kitchen, her hands moved with sinister purpose. She sprinkled a fine powder into Ethan's portion of stew, her lips curving into a smile. At the table, Ethan picked up his spoon. Naomi watched him carefully. Go on, sweetheart, Vanessa cooed. I made this just for you. Ethan hesitated, sniffing the stew. His face wrinkled. It smells strange. Naomi frowned. Strange? Let me taste it. She reached for his spoon, but Vanessa quickly interrupted. Oh, Naomi, don't be paranoid. It's just a new spice. Richard chuckled. Naomi, relax. Vanessa means well. Naomi hesitated, then let Ethan eat a few spoonfuls. But she never took her eyes off him. Ethan forced the food down, but his body shifted uneasily. His smile faded. After dinner, as Ethan lay in bed, he complained of a stomachache. Naomi rubbed his back, worried. It's probably nothing, Richard said. New food sometimes upsets children. But Naomi couldn't shake the feeling. She replayed the moment, Vanessa hovering, urging Ethan to eat. Something about her smile chilled Naomi to the bone. The next morning, Naomi woke to Ethan's cries. She rushed to his room and found him pale, clutching his stomach. Panic surged through her. Richard! Come quickly, she screamed. Richard appeared, alarmed, while Vanessa stood at the doorway, her expression unreadable. A doctor was called. After examining Ethan, he shook his head in confusion. There are traces of something unusual in his system, but I can't identify it yet. Has he eaten anything strange? Naomi's heart pounded. He only ate what Vanessa cooked last night. The room fell silent. Richard frowned. Naomi, don't start this again. Vanessa gasped dramatically. Are you accusing me of harming your son? Naomi's eyes narrowed. I'm saying something is wrong, and it started with your food. Richard rubbed his temples, torn. Enough. Ethan needs rest, not arguments. That night, Naomi sat by her son's bedside, stroking his hand as he drifted in and out of restless sleep. She whispered, I will protect you, Ethan, no matter what. From outside the door, Vanessa watched, her eyes cold. Under her breath, she muttered, This is only the beginning. The warning sign had been sounded, but Naomi didn't yet know how deep the danger ran. Morning rolled in on a hush of expensive silence, the kind that lives in mansions. Naomi set oatmeal on the counter and called, Ethan, breakfast. She was deliberate now. Measured portions, ingredients she'd open herself, nothing touched overnight. Vanessa glided in, silk robe whispering along the marble. Still making porridge? She asked with a bright, sharpened smile.
Poor Ethan.
His palate will never grow. It keeps his stomach calm, Naomi replied, not meeting her eyes. Richard entered, phone at his ear. Taya nodded. Board at 9. Vanessa, we'll need that investor dinner tomorrow. Already planning it, Vanessa sang. And I'd love to handle Ethan's meals from now on. A chance to bond. Naomi's spoon paused mid-stir. That's not necessary. Richard covered his phone receiver. It could be good, Naomi. She's trying. Vanessa clasped her hands like an angel in a cathedral mural. Please. Let me help. Naomi forced a smile. Will alternate. She placed the oatmeal in front of Ethan, guiding his small hands. He ate obediently, eyes flicking between the two women like a tennis ball in a match he didn't understand. After school drop-off, Naomi stopped by the family clinic. Can you run a panel? She asked Dr. Bello. Just to be safe. Dr. Bello squinted over his glasses. You suspect something. I suspect that my son keeps getting ill when certain meals are served. He nodded slowly. We'll document everything. Quietly. Back home, The kitchen staff moved like a metronome. Clara, the maid with careful footsteps and a cautious smile, wiped down the counters. Vanessa breezed in, set down a sleek cosmetic pouch, and slid it into the pantry. Odd place for makeup. Clara's eyes followed the pouch, then snapped back to her cloth. Clara, Vanessa chirped, we'll be doing something special tonight. Ginger chicken for Ethan. Very gentle. She touched Clara's shoulder, light, almost kind, and drifted away. Naomi stood at the doorway as if drawn by a string. Clara, if anyone asks, Ethan is to eat only what I approve. Her voice was calm. Her hands were not. Clara hesitated. Yes, madam. Vanessa reappeared with a wicker basket of fresh herbs. Naomi dear, perhaps take the afternoon to rest? You've looked worried. She plucked a sprig of basil and inhaled. Leave dinner to me. Naomi tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'll rest after I arrange Ethan's evening snack. Vanessa's smile thinned. Of course. That night, Ethan's homework lay like fallen leaves across the table. Naomi reviewed spelling words. Vanessa preheated the oven. Mom, Ethan whispered. Do I have to eat her food? Naomi's heart rattled in her chest. We'll all eat together, she said. And I'm right here. Vanessa set a timer. The oven hummed. 2 platters appeared, one for the adults, one smaller for Ethan, gleaming under the task light. Naomi moved toward it. Careful, Vanessa murmured. Hot. Naomi flinched back, then glanced at Clara, who stood very still, as if a wrong move would splinter the air. Naomi sat beside Ethan, angled his plate, and took the first bite herself. Vanessa laughed lightly. Testing me? Naomi swallowed slowly. I'm being a mother. Across the table, Ethan's fork hovered. On cue, Richard's phone buzzed and buzzed again. He stood, apologetic. 2 minutes. He stepped away to the hallway. Vanessa placed a glass of water by Ethan's plate. Drink, sweetheart. The ginger's strong. Naomi wrapped her hand around the glass before he could touch it. Their eyes locked, Vanessa's, glittering, Naomi's, steady. Alternate, Naomi said softly. Remember? My turn tomorrow. Of course, Vanessa replied, a smile that felt like ice skimming across a lake. In the pantry, the makeup pouch waited, quiet, patient, and full of secrets. Mid-afternoon, sunlight razored through the high windows, landing in neat squares on the pantry floor. Clara carried a tray of utensils, paused, and looked at the shelf where the cosmetic pouch sat between flour and cumin.
Odd.
She'd left the flour with the flour yesterday. She eased the pouch open, just enough to see, a slim brown vial with a gold cap, no label. Footsteps. She snapped the pouch shut, heart drumming, and backed away as Vanessa swept in with a smile like a locked door. Clara, darling, Vanessa said, voice dipped in honey. Bring me the small kettle. Yes, madam. Clara reached for the kettle and knocked a spoon. It clanged on the tile. She startled so hard her elbow hit the shelf. The pouch tumbled, the vial rolled out. Tink, into the light. Both women froze. Vanessa moved first, fluid and unruffled. She scooped up the vial and tucked it back inside the pouch. Careless, she said gently. This kitchen is organized for a reason. I'm sorry, Clara whispered, cheeks burning. I'll fix everything. Vanessa's tone stayed light, but her eyes were sharp as pins. Be more careful. The family depends on order. Clara watched her drift away and exhaled. Her fingers shook. She had cleaned houses where secrets gathered in corners like dust. But this was something else. That evening, Clara lingered by the pantry door and saw Vanessa pull the vial again, add a droplet to a small ceramic bowl, and stir it into a sauce that steamed like breath in winter. Vanessa tested it on the tip of her finger, pressed lips together, and nodded. She portioned the sauce into 2 bowls, one for the adults and a smaller one for Ethan. Clara's breath stuttered. The smaller bowl went onto Ethan's plate. Then Vanessa glanced up and, for a second, looked directly at Clara. The glance held a warning that didn't need words. Clara stepped back into the shadow of the corridor. Her throat felt dry. She thought of her own little brother, of years in a one-room flat, of the promise she'd made to herself when she got this job. Keep your head down. Save money. Send some home. The warning hit her again. Keep your head down. Naomi entered the kitchen and lifted Ethan's plate. Clara's feet moved before her mind did. "Madam," she said, voice tight, "perhaps he can have the jollof instead?" The chef made fresh. Vanessa appeared with a laugh. Clara is enthusiastic, but Ethan likes this better. Naomi looked between them. Clara's eyes pleaded. Naomi forced a nod. He'll try just a little. That night, Clara cried in the staff quarters, very quietly. Finally, she slid from her bed, tiptoed to the pantry, found a clean deli container, and, hands steady now, ladled a spoonful from the small ceramic bowl into it. She snapped the lid, wrapped it in foil, and buried it behind frozen stock in the back of the staff freezer. She labeled it with a lie. "Go pepper soup, do not touch." She leaned against the freezer door and swallowed hard. "Forgive me," she whispered into the humming cold. "But if they ask for truth, let me have it." The container sat like a time bomb, silent, sealed, and waiting. The rain started before dawn, needling the windows. Naomi sat on Ethan's bed, counting breaths with him to ease his nausea. When the house rose, she rose too, ready. In the breakfast room, Vanessa poured tea with theatrical grace. "Sleep well?" she asked, eyes bright. "Ethan didn't," Naomi said. "He woke up sick again." "Children," Vanessa sighed. "Weak tummies." Naomi placed both palms on the table and leaned in. "He gets sick after your meals." Silence cracked. Richard looked up from the business pages. "Naomi." "I said what I said," Naomi continued, voice low and firm. "Stop serving my son." Vanessa chuckled, almost tender. "You're tired, Naomi. You're imagining patterns." "I'm not." Naomi pulled a small notebook from her robe pocket and set it down. "Dates. Times. What he ate. When he got sick. It matches." Richard pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is not the way." "What is the way?" Naomi asked, turning to him. "Waiting until he collapses?" Vanessa's face softened like a curtain of sympathy. "I know grief, Naomi. I know what fear does to the mind. But accusing me? In front of my husband." Naomi's jaw tightened. "He's my husband, too." Vanessa glanced at Richard with an almost wounded disbelief. "Do you hear her? After all I've done for this family." "What you've done," Naomi said, "is make my son afraid to eat." Richard slammed the paper down. "Enough." He stood, chair scraping. "You will not turn this house into a courtroom." Naomi didn't flinch. "Then let truth be simple. From today, I prepare all of Ethan's meals." Vanessa made a small, derisive sound. "We'll see how long you last, dear. You're stretched thin already." Clara lingered in the doorway, an invisible hinge between worlds. She held a tray too tightly, knuckles pale. Naomi looked at her. Their eyes met for a fraction, a flicker of fear, a question, a promise. "Richard," Naomi said finally, "if anything happens to Ethan, I will never forgive you for not listening." Richard stared at Naomi, lips pressed into a hard line. "We're done with this conversation." As he and Vanessa left the room, Naomi's breath came ragged, but her spine stayed straight. She turned to Clara. "Lock the pantry when I'm not here," she said softly. "Tell a chef to bring ingredients to me directly." Clara nodded. "Yes, madam." After they were alone, Clara swallowed. "Madam, if someone asked for evidence, would you use it?" Naomi held her gaze. "Evidence is the only language liars understand." Clara's hands trembled, but her voice steadied. "Then there is something you should know." Before she could speak, a call rang through the house. Chief Viralvideos had arrived, unexpected, unannounced, with a presence that bent the air. "Later," Clara whispered, stepping back. "Please a later." The truth pressed against Clara's teeth, but fear pressed harder. Chief Viralvideos' cane clicked a measured metronome on the marble as he crossed the foyer. "Where's my grandson?" he boomed. "In his room, sir," Naomi replied, forcing composure. "He's resting." The old man's sternness softened. Bring him to me when he feels strong. Then his eyes sharpened. And bring me the truth while you're at it. Vanessa entered, luminous in cream, greeting him with a kiss to the cheek. You look well, Baba. I look busy, he said dryly. Spare me the sweetness. Richard appeared, and for a moment the room filled with old rivalries and fresher wounds. Chief Durojiyi lowered himself into an armchair and fixed his son with a gaze that had judged executives and kings. Is your house in order? Richard's pause answered for him. In the kitchen, Clara moved quickly. She opened the staff freezer, retrieved the foil-wrapped container, and tucked it into a tote beneath folded dish towels. When she turned, the kitchen supervisor stood there, brows lifted. Clara? Stock. For the main kitchen, Clara lied. Chef asked. The supervisor nodded and went back to her list. Clara exhaled shakily and slipped out, taking the back corridor to the house manager's office. The old fridge there hummed louder, almost conspiratorially. She hid the container behind a crate of sparkling water, then taped a note on the door. Defrosting, do not open. She closed the door and pressed her palm against it, as if to seal a pact. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. How are you, my sunshine? Pray before decisions. Clara typed, praying. Then she added, I'm scared. The afternoon dragged like a heavy curtain. Naomi brewed tea for Chief Durojiyi and waited as he sipped and watched, saying nothing. When she could bear the silence no longer, she said, Sir, something is wrong in this house. He set his cup down. I know, he said simply. I just don't know which snake in the grass to cut. Upstairs, Ethan napped, hand tucked under his cheek, lashes damp. Naomi brushed his hair, then went to the hallway and leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Clara found her there. Madam. She glanced up and down the corridor, then whispered, I kept a sample. From the small bowl prepared for Ethan. I hid it. Naomi's eyes flew open. You what? I was afraid, Clara said, voice breaking, but I was more afraid of doing nothing. Naomi took her hand. You're brave. The words trembled out as gratitude, as relief, as rage threaded with hope. Keep it hidden. We'll use it when we must. Clara nodded. Inspector Okoro, he's fair. If it comes to it. Naomi's throat tightened. It will come to it. That evening, a message went around the mansion. The investor dinner would be held tomorrow. Vanessa orchestrated florals, wines, seating. Impress them, Richard, she murmured, smoothing his lapel. Let them see how perfect our home is. Perfect. Naomi echoed under her breath, passing by. Then perfection won't mind scrutiny. Vanessa's gaze slid, slow and satisfied. Scrutinize all you want, sweetheart. But don't forget to smile for the guests. The container lay hidden in the humming dark, proof with a pulse, waiting to be heard. The night breathed money. Strings of crystal caught chandelier light. Waiters moved with ballet precision. Laughter rose like warm steam. The investor dinner gave the mansion a theater's glow, everyone performing a role. Welcome, Richard told a cluster of men in tailored suits. You'll find our portfolio speaks for itself. Vanessa floated beside him like the perfect hostess. Ethan, darling, she cooed, guiding him toward a smaller chair by Naomi. Try a little, all right? Naomi leaned down. You don't have to finish anything, she whispered to Ethan.
Just small bites.
I'm here. Clara hovered at the margins, eyes mapping paths between table and kitchen, between the living and the truth she'd tucked on ice. Courses arrived in elegant procession. For the adults, citrus-glazed sea base. For Ethan, a mild chicken and rice dish plated on a smaller porcelain. Naomi's breath hitched. The sauce glistened in a familiar way. She lifted Ethan's fork, took the first bite, and held it on her tongue, listening to her body, waiting. The taste carried a faint metallic back note, like water from an old pipe. Across the table, Vanessa laughed at something a guest said, head tilted, neck bare and beautiful, a woman who had never met a consequence she couldn't charm. Good, she called to Ethan. Naomi cleared her throat. We'll start with salad. Vanessa's smile held. Of course. But Ethan, eager to prove he was part of the grown-up celebration, speared a small piece and popped it into his mouth before Naomi could stop him. He chewed, swallowed, and lifted his glass of water. 10 minutes later, after toasts, after Richard's confident speech about stability and vision, Ethan's small hand trembled against Naomi's arm. "Mom," he whispered, voice thread-thin, "my stomach hurts." Naomi turned so fast her chair squealed. His face had gone colorless. Sweat gathered on his upper lip. "Richard," Naomi said, already standing, "call Dr. Bello." Ethan wavered, eyes unfocusing. A low moan escaped him. The room's shine shattered. "Someone call an ambulance," Naomi shouted, scooping Ethan from his chair, pressing him to her, willing her own steady breath into his panicked body. "Stay with me, baby. Look at me." Guest stood, restless, murmuring. Richard's phone shook in his hand. His voice did not. "Ambulance.
Now."
Vanessa's hand went to her mouth, eyes wide with a horror that looked practiced. "What's happening?" she asked the room, and then, softer, as if only Naomi could hear. "He was fine a moment ago." Clara ran to Naomi with a cool cloth. "Hold this on his forehead." Her own hands didn't feel like her hands anymore. They were someone braver's. She looked across the table at the small porcelain plate, then at the service doors, then back at Naomi. It was a triangle of terror. The siren's wail arrived like an answer to a prayer Naomi hadn't finished. Paramedics swept in, bright with urgency. "What did he eat?" one asked. "Chicken." "Rice," Naomi said, voice flat with focused fear. "He's been sick after meals." She stopped herself, staring at Vanessa, then back at the medic.
"Take him."
"Please." They lifted Ethan with professional tenderness. Naomi climbed into the ambulance, clutching his hand. Richard followed, face a ruin of shaken certainty. Vanessa remained in the doorway, arms folded like she was cold. As the ambulance doors slammed, Clara stood very still in the gale of wind they left behind. She felt the note in her pocket. Defrosting, do not open.
Proof. A path.
Richard turned to Vanessa before he stepped into his car. "If I find out," he stopped, throat working. "If you find out what?" Vanessa asked softly, stepping closer, eyes shining. "That your wife is unraveling? That her fear is poisoning this house?" Richard's jaw clenched. He looked at the empty chair where Ethan had been, at the napkin on the floor, at the perfect house with its perfect lie. "Pray," Clara whispered to herself as the mansion doors closed. "Pray the truth doesn't come too late." Hook into Chapter 11. At the hospital, a test would return with a single, chilling word, poison, and Naomi would demand an investigation that could tear the Cole family in two. The hospital lights were blinding, sterile, unforgiving. Naomi sat at Ethan's bedside, clutching his frail hand. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, monitors beeping like distant thunder. Dr. Bello entered, his face a grave mask. He adjusted his glasses and spoke softly. "Mrs. Cole, we found traces of poison in Ethan's system." Naomi's body went cold. "Poison?" Her voice cracked. "You mean someone is doing this on purpose?" Richard staggered back. "That's impossible," he said, shaking his head. "Ethan must have eaten something outside. School maybe." "No." Naomi cut in sharply. "He only eats from home. From this house." Richard's eyes flicked to Vanessa, who stood by the doorway with a look of wounded innocence. "You're not seriously suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting," Naomi snapped. "I'm telling you, it's her." She pointed, hand trembling. Vanessa gasped, hand over her chest. "How dare you accuse me at a hospital, with your son fighting for his life? I've done nothing but care for this family." Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. "Care? You want to erase him." "Enough," Richard barked. His voice echoed against the walls. "You're letting fear twist your mind. I will not let you destroy this family with paranoia." Naomi stood tall, eyes blazing. "If you won't protect my son, Richard, I will. And when the truth comes out, don't say I didn't warn you." Dr. Bello placed the lab slip in Naomi's hand. One word screamed back at her in bold ink: poison. The next morning, Inspector Okoro arrived. His presence filled the hospital room like a storm. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp as glass, he carried an air of authority that silenced everyone. "Madam Naomi," he greeted, flipping open a leather notebook. "You reported suspected poisoning?" "Yes," Naomi said firmly. "My son has been poisoned. It keeps happening in the house. After meals." Okoro's gaze shifted to Richard. "Mr. Cole?" Richard's jaw worked. "I don't believe my wife's claims. We don't know what the boy ate." Vanessa interjected quickly, voice dripping with concern. "Inspector, it's tragic, but Naomi is unstable. Grief from her past loss. She sees enemies where there are none." Okoro's eyes lingered on Vanessa a beat too long. "And you are?" "Vanessa Cole," she replied, smoothing her dress. "Richard's wife." Okoro scribbled something in his notebook. "I will need access to the household. Kitchen. Staff. Every corner. No one leaves until I've questioned them." Naomi exhaled, relief flickering across her face. "Thank you, Inspector." But Clara, watching from the hallway, felt sweat gather at her temples. The container she'd hidden pulsed in her mind like a drumbeat. Should she tell? Or keep quiet and survive? That night, Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering to herself, "Do I keep silent, or do I save Ethan's life?" 2 nights later, the Cole mansion hosted a glittering party to save face with investors. Laughter echoed in the grand hall, champagne glasses clinked, but Naomi stayed in a corner, guarding Ethan like a hawk. Vanessa, radiant in a red gown, mingled effortlessly. But as the night deepened, wine loosened her tongue. She leaned toward her confidant Lydia, voice just above the music. "That boy," she slurred. "He won't live long. Then Richard's world will be mine." Naomi, carrying a tray of fruit for Ethan, froze. Her heart hammered. She stood still, eyes wide, every syllable burning into her mind. She set the tray down and walked closer, deliberately loud enough that Vanessa's words reached her ears. Vanessa whipped around, face draining. "Naomi." Naomi's voice trembled with fury. "I heard you. Every word." "Drunk nonsense." Vanessa laughed weakly, trying to wave it off. "You twist everything." But Naomi leaned in, her whisper sharp as a knife. "One day soon, you won't be able to laugh it away. I'll make sure of it." Vanessa's painted smile faltered, but she quickly turned back to the crowd, laughing louder than before. Yet Naomi could see it, fear flashing behind the mask. In the shadows, Inspector Okoro observed quietly. He had heard enough to know Naomi wasn't just paranoid. Clara's hands shook as she retrieved the hidden container from the house manager's freezer. Her conscience screamed louder each day. When she saw Ethan pale again after nibbling food, she knew the time had come. She knocked gently on Inspector Okoro's temporary office door inside the mansion. He looked up, surprised. "Yes." Clara set the container down, wrapped in foil. "This is from Ethan's food. The night he got sick. I kept it." Okoro's eyes sharpened. "You're sure?" "Yes, sir. I swear on my life." He carefully unwrapped it, sniffed the contents, and sealed it in an evidence bag. "You've done the right thing." Clara swallowed hard. "Please don't let them know it was me." Okoro nodded. "Your name stays off the record, but this may save the boy." Later, Naomi found Clara in the hallway, eyes red. Clara whispered, "I gave him the food. Inspector Okoro will test it." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. She clasped Clara's hand. "You've given my son a chance to live." That night, Okoro returned with lab results. He held up the file in front of Richard and Naomi. This food contained confirmed toxins. Not by accident, by intention. Naomi turned to Richard, her voice trembling with rage and vindication. "Do you still think I'm paranoid?" Richard's face went pale as Vanessa walked in, smiling, unaware the trap had finally closed. The confrontation erupted in the living room under the glare of crystal chandeliers. Richard held the lab results in shaking hands. His voice cracked. "Vanessa, explain this." Vanessa blinked, feigning shock. "What? You think I would poison a child? Your son." Naomi's voice cut through the air. "Stop pretending. You slipped last night. I heard you admit it." Richard's eyes blazed. "Answer me, Vanessa." Tears welled in Vanessa's eyes. She dropped to her knees, clutching Richard's hands. "Richard, please. This is Naomi's doing. She planted evidence. She hates me. She wants me gone." Richard tore his hands away. "Don't twist this. These results don't lie." Naomi stepped forward, her voice cold as steel. "All your beauty, all your lies, they end tonight." Vanessa's mask shattered. She rose slowly, eyes flashing with venom.
Fine.
"Believe her lies. But remember this, Richard. You chose her. You brought her into this house. And now you'll watch everything fall apart." Richard staggered back, his world crumbling. Naomi, holding Ethan's hand, whispered fiercely, "You'll never hurt my son again." At that moment, Chief Durojuiri entered, cane striking the floor. His booming voice filled the room. "This disgrace ends now. And if the law won't judge, I will." Chief Durojuiri stood tall, his cane thundering against the marble floor. His eyes, sharp with age and authority, pierced through Vanessa like daggers. "Richard," he thundered, "is this the wife you chose? One who poisons children under my roof?" Vanessa's lips trembled. "Baba, please." "Silence," he roared. "You've stained this family's name." Richard sank onto the couch, hands gripping his hair. "Father, I didn't see it. I was blind." Naomi clutched Ethan close, her voice steady. "Sir, I begged Richard to listen. She nearly killed my son." Chief Durojuiri's gaze softened at Naomi, then hardened at Vanessa. "If she remains in this house another day, you will no longer be my son, Richard. Choose wisely." The silence was suffocating. Richard's lips parted, but no words came. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, fury replacing fear. "You'd throw me away for her? For this widow and her child?" Chief Durojuiri's cane struck the floor again. "The law will decide your fate." He pointed at Inspector Okoro. "Arrest her before I do it myself." The mansion erupted into chaos. Guests from the earlier dinner lingered in shock, their whispers rising like smoke. Inspector Okoro stepped forward, his badge gleaming. "Vanessa Cole," he declared, "you are under arrest for attempted murder." Gasps filled the room. Ethan, watching from Naomi's arms, hid his face against her shoulder. Vanessa backed away, her voice shrill. "You have no right." "Richard, stop them. Tell them this is a mistake." Richard stood frozen, his once commanding figure reduced to ash. I can't." Okoro's men stepped forward, clasping Vanessa's wrists in steel cuffs. She struggled, her diamond bracelet clattering to the floor. "Richard," she screamed, "you'll regret this." Naomi held Ethan tighter, whispering in his ear, "It's over, baby. You're safe now." As Vanessa was dragged through the grand doorway, camera flashes from the waiting press outside lit up the night. Vanessa's face twisted in fury as she shouted, "This family will burn before I'm done." The interrogation room was stark, its single bulb humming faintly. Vanessa sat chained, her once elegant hair now in disarray. Inspector Okoro placed a recorder on the table. "Tell us why," he demanded. Vanessa leaned back, a cruel smile forming.
"Why?"
"Because that boy stood in my way. Richard adored him. Everything in the will, his fortune, his empire, would have gone to Ethan someday. Where would that leave me and my children?" Okoro's brows furrowed. "So, you admit you poisoned him?" Her voice dropped, cold and deliberate.
"Yes."
"I would have done it again. Because in this world, power isn't given, it's taken." Unbeknownst to her, a live feed carried her words back to the Cole mansion. Richard sat in silence, hearing the woman he thought was his perfect wife confess without shame. Naomi held Ethan, whispering prayers of gratitude that truth was finally exposed. Chief Duroji's voice cracked as he said, "She has damned herself with her own tongue." The headlines exploded. Billionaire's wife arrested for poison plot. News anchors dissected every detail. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors. The once proud Cole family name was dragged through mud. Richard stayed locked in his study, staring at the walls. Every knock at the door went unanswered. His empire shook as business partners pulled away, investors demanding answers. Chief Duroji grew frilier overnight, the stress carving deeper lines into his face. "I built this name with sweat," he muttered. "Now the world laughs at us." Naomi, however, walked through the storm with quiet strength. She tended to Ethan, met with reporters only to say, "My son is alive, and that is all that matters." Richard finally sought Naomi in the garden, his eyes hollow. "Naomi, I failed you. I failed him. Please forgive me." Naomi looked at him, her voice steady. "You didn't fail me. You failed yourself." Richard fell to his knees, but Naomi turned away, Ethan's small hand tucked firmly in hers. Sunlight streamed through the hospital windows where Ethan was finally discharged. Naomi walked him out, her head held high, strength radiating in every step. Reporters swarmed, asking, "What's next for you, Mrs. Cole?" Naomi smiled faintly.
Peace.
"That's all I want." Richard rushed forward, desperation in his eyes. "Naomi, please don't leave me. I can't do this without you." She looked at him, her voice low but cutting. "My son's life is worth more than your empire, Richard. You chose blindness when I begged you to see." Ethan squeezed her hand. Naomi bent to him, whispering, "Let's go home, baby." They walked past the flashing cameras, past Richard's broken figure, past the weight of betrayal that once threatened to destroy them. As the doors closed behind them, Naomi whispered to herself, "We survived." Ethan smiled faintly. "Because you never gave up, Mommy." Naomi kissed his forehead, her strength unshaken. The world outside was loud with scandal, but inside her heart was quiet victory. Hook/finale, and as Vanessa's trial loomed, the family name might remain in ruins, but Naomi and Ethan walked free, stronger than ever, proof that no empire could outshine a mother's love. The end.